Eh? You said I should record the session. I don't want to record. All right. So yeah. So what was I? Oh, my chain of thought has been disrupted. All right, so I was saying, yeah, so you find the difference between the time. So we're trying to estimate the time, the effective working hours, which is first 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then also 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. So to get the effective working hours, first we want to find out how many hours the individual that work in the morning, which is 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And to get that is by finding the difference between 12 p.m. and 8 a.m. So that becomes equal to open brackets 12 p.m. minus 8 a.m. That will give us the working hours in the morning before the person went for lunch. Now, plus after the person came back from lunch, what was the working hours? The working hours become 5 p.m. minus 1 p.m. close brackets. That becomes the effective working hours. Yeah, and I mentioned if you notice this is PM and this is AM. So in order to ensure that they're both in the same what do you call it? To convert to 24 hours clock rather, you multiply by 24. So everything, but now it's everything you're multiplying. So you need to put everything in brackets. So open brackets and then come here and you close your brackets before you multiply because you're multiplying the whole answer by 24. So press enter and you get your 8. And I mentioned that for some you might see 8 a.m. If it's showing 8 a.m., kindly come here and change it from, so if it's showing 12 a.m. rather, kindly come here and change it from 12 a.m. to numbers. So remember it's in hours, so it's the number of working hours we're trying to estimate. So kindly remove, so you can change it back to, sorry, yeah, you can basically convert it back to numbers. And then I just use this to decrease the decimal points, basically. Yeah. I can decide to leave it and I can also decide to remove it as well, but I just prefer to remove the decimal point. I hope that's better and clearer. All right. Okay. So I didn't get the question. What if it's a large data set? Do you drag? Drag what exactly? Yeah, so if it's the same formula you want to transfer, yeah, you can always do that. So let's say, okay, let me try this. Let's say working out, let's say the resumption was, let me just copy this and then just replace. So instead of 8 a.m., let me change it to maybe the person came in late that day and clocked in around 10 a.m. and maybe went for break around 1 p.m. And so the person came back from lunch, let's say 2 p.m. and walked to, let's say 7 p.m., right? So let's say this is the time difference and we want to do the same calculation. So yeah, we cannot drag the calculation and you can see it's also 8 hours. But yeah, let me change this to 5. So let's say the person closed early, around 5. Around 5, you can see that the working hours is 6. So all I know to do was to drag the formula and transfers the formula and applies it to this column. Oh, that's fine. All right, so yes. So please, Samuel, kindly check the group chat to download this sheet. You'll find the sheet on the group chat. So just kindly download it so you can follow through with what I'm doing. I hope that's fine. That's for Samuel Madupe. All right, so that's for date and time. Yeah. So the next is joining text and numbers. So quickly we'll look at joining text and numbers together. So let's see how to join text and numbers together. Yeah, so first we look at joining text together. So if you have first name and last name, so this is something you often do from time to time, or you'll be required to do. So you have the first name in the column, you have the last name in the column, and you now want the last name and the first name merged together. How do you go about it? So I'm going to be teaching us about two ways we can go about it. Um, two ways, let's say about three ways. I'll be teaching us about three ways. Okay, no, just two ways. I'll be teaching us about two ways we can go about joining the first name and the first name and the last name together. One way is using concatenate. Using concatenate. So let me just type it so we can see the spelling. That's the spelling. Concatenate. So concatenate is the function that allows you to join join two texts together, two texts in different columns together. So I want to join Nancy and Smith together in this single cell. Yeah, so that we have last name first and then we have first name. So that's fine. So moving on. So the syntax basically is equal to concatenate, open bracket. So we have last name first. So I'll click on Smith, which is the last name, and then comma, first name, which is Nancy, close bracket. So something is going to happen. I'm doing this purposely so that we can understand. So what will happen is we'll have Smith, Nancy together, and there won't be any space between. I'll explain how to introduce a space, but first, let us understand the concept of concatenate. So concatenate basically is a function that is used to join the last name and the first name together. So equal to concatenate, open bracket, I selected D3, then comma, C3, then close bracket and enter. You can see Smith Nancy. But let's look at the order on top. We have last name, comma, space, and first name. So the reason I'm saying it like this is remember I told you that Excel is almost logic. So you need to be able to follow it also with logic, right? So if you look at it, you see it's last name, comma, then space before the first name. So we're going to introduce this comma and the space also in the concatenate. So the question is, how do we do that? So I did equal to concatenate last name. So comma, this comma is used to separate the two arguments. So the next thing we want to do is to introduce a comma and a space. And how do we do that? We're going to do that by putting it in double quotes. Double quote. So put double quote, comma, and then the space, and double quote, then a comma to separate the arguments. I will press enter. And we can see we have our Smith, comma, space, Nancy. So let's look at it. Equal to concatenate, open bracket, D3. D3 is the last name, comma, to separate the argument. Then we have our double quotes. So we have our first double quotes, then we have this comma, and then the space. The comma and a space. Then we have close our double quotes, then comma, and then we have C3, which is first name, then close bracket. So please let's give it a try. It's still open. So you can concatenate more than two cells. Yeah, you can concatenate more than two cells. But concatenate a text to a number. Don't be patient, we're getting there. So yes, you can concatenate a text to a number as well. So yeah. So, well, let me be sure. Let me be sure I understand what you're talking about. When you say concatenate a text to a number, so let's say we have, let me insert. Let's say we had maybe 53. Let's say maybe that's their age. So we can have Smith, we have comma, and then we can have 53. But this time we'll have to introduce first. I advise we introduce. Let's have Smith Nancy, then hyphen before the 53. So we'll put it in double quotes, space, hyphen, space, double quotes, comma, and then I'll select it, have enter. So you can see we can concatenate both name and the what do you call it, and the text. Sorry, text and the number together. Yeah, I can see we can also concatenate more than two cells. So I just concatenated about three cells together, which is Nancy Smith, that's C, D, and E. So I hope that answers your question, Philip. Yes. So please let's give it a try. So we can remove this. Okay, you didn't get how we included.
Can I see the formula, please?
Hello, sorry, please. I would advise you post in the chat. Yeah, I'm actually reading the chat. Yeah. So this is the formula. Yeah, so the reason why I don't want people speaking is so it doesn't become rowdy. Because if anyone has a question and has to speak, it will just make everything rowdy after a while. Yeah. So please let's just drop it in the chat and I'll respond accordingly. Yeah, so hope you can see the chat. So hope you can see the formula. Why is the background white? Okay. Um, Give me 1 second. I think I didn't remove it from night. Oh, this is better. Hope my background is better now. Hey, Ahmed, sorry. Hope my background is better. Is there a difference? All right. So hope this is fine. I guess I can move on. So yeah, so we can also do the same thing minus, we can also drag down and to do the same thing. And the, sorry, not handy. Yeah. I want to remove, I think we can remove the age. The other ones don't have age. So we can remove the age and then drag down. Let's see. So for those that are still kind of, they're still trying to type, that's it. So we have D3, comma, double quotes, comma, space, double quotes. So let me just mention some common errors that people make. Okay, Ahmed, can you unmute and talk to me because I don't understand. It's not very clear what you typed. So you can unmute and just speak here. Let me understand what you're saying. Are you referring to your own sheet? On my own sheet, or that means you can't see my own sheet. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, sir. I think I understood what he was asking, or what he's asking. He said the plain background, I think you hid the grid for other table, like the main Excel columns and rows. It's only the one that the range that you picked that we are seeing. For others the grid has been, I think maybe colored to white or removed, something like that. I think is what he's asking about, the plain white background.
All right, thank you. So just if you have the sheet open, you can just go to, that's for Ahmed. If you have the sheet open, just go to joining text and numbers. What I did was I zoomed in. So, okay. So I think it's because I zoomed in. That's why, where is, okay, sorry. Because I zoomed in, that's why. So they're using a phone. Yeah, you might be seeing just a plain background. Is it better, Ahmed, now? I hope you can see my screen well now. Yeah. So that's actually one way, using concatenate. The one way is using concatenate. The second way basically is using an operator called ampersand. The ampersand is the AND function. And that is shift 7 and. So I'm going to join using the ampersand. And this time I'm going to have first name and last name. So I'm going to have Nancy and Smith. So let's do it. Nancy shift 7, which is and, then Smith. Enter. So if you notice, it's Nancy Smith, but we need a space in between. So we need to also insert a space in between, just the way we did for the last name and the first name, right? So in order to correct that, let's do it now. Equal to Nancy, and which is shift 7. And so remember I said we need a space in between. So we're going to put a space, double quote, space, double quote. So we put the space in double quotes. So we have a space. Then we now have shift 7, which is and. Then we have Smith. So it's like saying Nancy and space and Smith, basically. And we have enter. We have Nancy and space and Smith. So that is it. So you can look at the formula. So you can look at you can look at what I did there and also give it a try as well. Equal to Nancy, which is C3 and then a space, the space that will be between Nancy and Smith, then and D3, which is the ampersand function. So D3, which is Smith. The ampersand is basically the and, or and is basically the ampersand. Yeah, but this is, we always call it and, so that's why I'm using the word and. So it's a lot more familiar and we actually understand what I'm actually explaining. So going forward, that is it. And that's the way I explained the flash fill. You can pull down the fill handle so that the formula transfers and we are good. Yeah. So you can see C4 and space and D4. Is there any questions so far? Any question for me so far? So it looks like it's self-explanatory. All right, so moving on. If this is pretty easy, I hope we've all gotten it. I hope we've tried it and we've all gotten it. I should write down. All right. Spell the formula. Okay, so let me just drop it on the chat or in the chat box. So which of the formula are you talking about? Is it the concatenate? I want to believe it's the concatenate. So let me just drop both of them in the chat box so that we can always make reference to it. One second. All right, so I've dropped it in the chat box. You can check. Oh, the second. So I just dropped both of them in the chat box, so you can just check it out. Yes. All right, so moving on. So what happens if we want to join both so we want to join a text and a number in a different format. So when I say a different format, I'm talking about something like a date and time. So let's say we want to join text and a date, or want to join time and a date together. How do we approach it? Do we use the ampersand? Do we use the concatenate? Or is there a different approach, considering they're both in different formats? Yeah. So if you use the and or you use concatenate, let's see what happens. So now what we want to do is okay. What we want to do is, let's say we want to have today's date and the actual date in the same cell together. How do we go about it? We want to have today's date and the actual date in the same cell. How do we go about it? Let's say we want to join both of them. Let's see what happens when we use the ampersand function. So we have today's date and then we have, let's put a space in between, space. Then we have and we have the date. What happens? So you can see it gives us an error, which is actually giving us numbers, right? So which is actually an error because this is not what we want to see. So then how do we ensure that when we merge it together, it still maintains the same format? There is a function called the text function. So it's a text function that allows us to maintain the same format when merging both of them together, the text function. And let's see how the text function works. So it's going to be equal to, so we're going to use the text function for the actual date. So we're going to do today's date and space. And now this is where we introduce the text function. Open bracket. Now, what is the argument? The first argument there is value. What are we trying to, which value are we trying to maintain its format, basically, or convert its format? So it is the date. So I'm going to reference the date by selecting the date, which is D28, comma. The next is the format text. What is the format we're trying to maintain? If we look at it, what comes first is the month, followed by, so we want the month followed by the day, to be month forward slash the day forward slash the year. So let's have, I'm going to put it in double quotes. So double quote, sorry about that. I clicked on something by mistake. All right, so double quotes, we have the months, which is MM, just like we learned yesterday, MM, forward slash, then the next is day, which is DD, forward slash the year. So the year we could have YYYY, right? But, or we could have YY. So let's leave it as YYY, sorry, Y 4 times rather. So it becomes 2023. So double quotes close and we close our brackets and we press enter. And we can see we have the dates. We've merged both today's date and the actual date. So now we have today's date column 11th forward slash 11 forward slash 19 forward slash 2023. So and we can do the same thing for we can do the same thing for also time, but this time the format for time will change. So it will be current time and double quote space, and then we have the time, but this time we're going to have text, open bracket, what is the value? D29, which is the cell we're trying to reference, comma, the format type is, so we want the hours first, so the hour, column, sorry, yeah, column, then we want minutes, then we want PM. It should even be AM forward slash PM. Okay, I didn't close the brackets. Okay, I'm supposed to close the bracket. But yes, that was what the error message was, if I read it correctly. So now we have current time for, sorry, column 6:18. So that is the current time now. So let's check it out. So is there any questions so far based on what we've learned? Is there any questions so far? So if there's no questions so far, yes, I think I would like to pause here at this time, right? So at this time, I'll take any question. For if statement VLOOKUP, there are actually more, I think that there are actually important things we need to touch on, because most of the things we'll be dealing with going forward, we'll be making reference to if statement and VLOOKUP. And these two things are things that you can't easily learn, basically. Yeah, so I'll put a pause on it. So I'll take questions at this time. If you use small letters, it's still okay. Yeah, it still works like text, yes. Equal to text, small letter, it still works too. Yeah, but those don't misspell the function name. So yeah, great question. You can use small letter. So is it important to use AM forward slash PM? So it's not important. The reason why is because it's current time. So what happens is if tomorrow it changes, yeah, I think it's important. I'm not most times when I do this. Okay, let's even give it a try. It doesn't harm to give it a try. Yeah, I always like to try things when I'm not very certain. So let's see what happens if it's PM. So it's, yeah, it's, so remember I mentioned that it's actually the format. So yeah, so we can see that there's an error with that. So it's the format. If you're not certain about the format, what you can always do, like I mentioned last class, where you can see the different formats. Oh, sorry, I don't think I mentioned it on the general group. I remember mentioning it to someone. Um, yeah, so you can go down. Let me do it again. I think I'm rushing. So if you're not certain about the format, like the format I just typed, because I use it quite often, so that's why I know the format. But let's say we can't remember this format of hours, minutes, and the syntax, basically. You can always come to numbers, click on the drop down, more number format, and then click on time, and you can see the different formats. Just scroll down. You can see the different formats, or you can come to custom. This is where you use better see it. You can see hour, minutes, seconds. If you want to include seconds, but usually AM/PM, AM/PM. So you can see the formats. So by default, this is the format. So you can see the one we just used. This is the one we use. Hours, column, minutes, AM/PM. So that is it. And yeah, depending on which one you're comfortable with, just make sure you follow the format. If you can't remember, you can always come back. Yeah, and you can see so you can see for hours, this is the one we used here, AM/PM. For day of the week, you can see day of the week. Yeah, if you can't remember, you can see months/D/YYY. Yeah. So I'm going to have to stop at this point. My system also is the battery is very low. So I might not be able to continue. And then also I would have tried to quickly look for an alternate source, but looking at even the number of people online,